If you had the ability to improve your decision making by 20%, would you take it? I'm Dr. Jeff Cumro down at Better Life Chiropractic and Wellness. And over the past 16 years, I've been studying chiropractic. I've studied functional neurology. I've studied functional medicine. And when we put all of that stuff together, we see some interesting things. And I saw an interesting study the other day that was talking about how chiropractic improves the effect of the prefrontal cortex by 20%. And what we're going to talk about today is ultimately how that happens and why this is something that a lot of people should look a little bit further into, because it is something that can help a lot of people. And we're going to move to the drawing board for this because I do think it's important to get an overall clear picture of this. So what we're going to draw here is a massive highway. And we'll have our lines in here. We'll just make it 4-lane highway. All right, so if this is what we're going to look at, this is going to be the analogy for the spinal cord. And as we look at this, if we have on-ramps every little bit here, we end up getting a ton of traffic through all of this, right? It ends up being more and more traffic as we get further and further along. What happens if we block off one of these lanes of traffic? If we do it right here, it's going to affect, less of that, right? Because you've got less traffic getting on, but it's still going to block a significant portion of this. If we move that block to somewhere, let's see, I got to get my pen back here. If we move that block to somewhere up in here, it's going to affect a lot of traffic because we've got all of this stuff that's coming on. If we block off 2 of those lanes, it's going to affect even more. And ultimately, this is what happens when we look at the body and the spine. So just imagine we got our person here, and these are going to be, let's see, this is going to be the sacrum, these are going to be the vertebrae here. And I know these aren't quite aligned and anything like that, but this is still going to give you a clear picture, right? So if we have some sort of movement error right here between these 2 spots, we get all of the nerves that come from the legs and all of that stuff going up through here. It's coming up to the brain, right? It's supposed to carry that through. However, if we have something in here that is changing that, it doesn't necessarily knock out all of that lane of traffic, but it changes the way that moves. It decreases the information that the brain has to make decisions about what kind of environment you're in. And the brain uses that information to ultimately decide what kind of action do we need to put out. So having this alteration in there greatly changes everything. But if we have one up here, it changes it even more, right? Because we have the arms and the legs and the middle of the body and everything else that's going up through that area. So the one that's up here has more traffic. It's like the on-ramp. So it's blocking it off up here versus blocking it off down here. So is one of these more important than the other? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on what kind of problems an average person is facing. It depends on, what their symptomatology is. It depends on, a bunch of different things. But when we have these blockages, it affects things. And if we have multiple of these blockages where we have things not moving the way that they're supposed to in multiple areas, and it might be a knee, it might be your pelvis, it might be in the neck. We have multiple of those areas. It might not be blocking off 1 lane. It might not be blocking off 2 lanes. It might be like blocking off 3 lanes. So that person is going to be more affected than somebody who is blocked off in 2 lanes, right? So it's important to understand how all of this happens. And what all of this does, like I said, all of this comes up through here. It's going to go into the brainstem. It's going to come out into the cerebellum of the opposite side, and then it's going to come up to that prefrontal cortex right up here. So that prefrontal cortex is right here on the front of the brain. And what does the prefrontal cortex do? It's the CEO of the brain. It's decision-making and goal planning and memory and, is this a good idea or not, right? So people who have, gambling addictions or spend money frivolously or different things like that stereotypically have an area of the prefrontal cortex that's not quite as developed as others. Not in all cases necessarily, but that's stereotypically speaking, that's what's going on, right? So if we can improve the flow of information to get better information into that prefrontal cortex, we're likely going to be able to put better information down into the brain, down into the body from the brain, right? So that is ultimately why some of this is so important. And like I said, what that research study shows is when we have an adjustment, it clears that interference. It allows that traffic to move more smoothly, so you get more information to the brain. Ultimately, what it's doing is it's changing your perception. When you can move that joint, it feeds information up into the brain. When we have information on what kind of environment it's in, it makes things easier. So if you're playing sports, the objective of the defense would be to disguise what they're doing so the offense doesn't know exactly what they're going to do, and they can stop them more easily, right? The offense wants to disguise what they're doing so the defense doesn't know what they can do, and they're able to get what they need to do. They're able to reach the goal, right? What would it change if you were a coach and you knew every single play that the other team was going to run, no matter how they disguised it? It helps to have more information, right? So as we get that more information up there, we tend to have better function. We tend to have better focus, memory, decision-making, goal planning, all that other stuff that goes with that. So if you have questions on this, by all means, reach out. But it's cool research, and it's something that I think, I don't know that I've done the best job of explaining what this does. So if you have questions, reach out. As always, I appreciate you taking the time and expending the attention on something like this. I know that's your most valuable resource. I don't take that for granted. Hope you have a great week, and I will catch you next week.